Welcome to Wealth Beyond the White Coat, a show where we dive deep into the world of financial freedom for dentists and medical professionals. I'm your host, Darren Flesher, a dentist with a passion for uncovering the strategies that lead to a prosperous life beyond the office. Every episode will explore the avenues of alternative investing, tax mitigation, and secrets to build wealth that the textbooks don't teach you. Whether you're looking to enhance your financial literacy, discover new investment opportunities, or simply find a better way to manage your money, this is the place where your financial health is the core of our conversations. Welcome to Wealth Beyond the White Coat, where your journey to financial clarity and freedom begins. All right, welcome back to Wealth Beyond the White Coat. In the previous episode, we explored the fundamentals of the shred method and how it can help you manage your finances more efficiently. Today, we're continuing this exciting journey by diving into real-life examples and detailed strategies that have helped many achieve financial freedom faster than they ever thought possible. Get ready to hear inspiring stories and actionable steps that will empower you to take control of your financial destiny. So I've got a couple of questions for you. So what role does credit score have in any of this?
This is a good question, Darren. The credit score becomes important if you're at the very beginning when you're applying for the HELOC, they're obviously going to pull your credit and see what that looks like. If you have challenged credit, what we will do is say, hey, listen, don't shoot the moon. Don't go get, if you have $500,000 in equity in your property and you're a little bit credit challenged. And listen, I know this market, I think probably not as well as you guys do, but they're busy. And so sometimes bills don't get paid because I just didn't have time. I got called in, I was on call, I had trips over the weekends, whatever. So the credit score lapses a little bit. If someone's at a 600 credit score and the lender's, I don't really want to give you a $200,000 HELOC, then what I tell them is go ask for 20 or 30. It's enough to do what we're going to do in the interim. And then as you start using this in the system, and this is one of the genius things I think about what we've built, is that the reminders come via text and email. So it will say, on this day, make this payment. And you could do it once a week, twice a week. Some people do it, they check it every day or every couple days. We have a lot of white collar professionals that are like, I just want to pay bills on Friday. Cool. But if you've got a HELOC at the $20,000 or $30,000 level, you can do everything that Shred is going to have you do. So in the grand scheme of things, what I would say, Darren, is it's important at the beginning. It will become less and less important as you go. And just by the very nature of what we're doing, credit scores will improve over time because your credit utilization percentage just gets better and better.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So let's say I'm on board with this idea. Do you ever have struggles with spouses? How do you convince your wife that this is a good idea?
Never. Yeah, never. It always works best when spouses are on board together. By and large, I'd say 80% of the time, one person pays all the bills and the other person is oblivious to what happens on the bill side of things. So there's a little bit of training that goes on at the beginning. I can honestly say when my wife and I started using Shred very diligently, for the first 90 days, it's telling me to do this. Should I do this? And I'm like, just follow the system, follow the prompts. It's based on math, just follow the prompts. And an interesting thing happened, Darren. My wife grew up in a household where money was always a point of frustration. There was never enough. They lived in lack. Parents worked really hard, but just didn't make a lot per hour. So money was always a struggle. And there was always money anxiety for my wife. What happens if? What happens if a car breaks down? What happens if a storm rolls through? What happens if a major medical thing happens? Where will that money come from? So there always needed to be this bucket of money sitting there somewhere. And candidly, when we first got married, I said, hey, how much do you need in cash to feel safe and secure at any given point in time? And she said $30,000. We were 25. And I thought she'd hit the Listerine too hard that morning. You know what I mean? I was like, you're out of your mind. And I would feel safe if there's $30,000 sitting there. And then what happened when we started using Shred, she was like, it's weird. After about 3 or 4 months, she goes, all of that anxiety is gone because I know exactly where that money would come from. It would come from the HELOC if we need it. So what was once a fear was now this reassuring pot of money that was always available via our HELOC. And our clients will often say, oh, but when I got 100 or 200 grand or 300 grand available on my HELOC, though they may have only used 10, 20, 30 grand at a time, they really felt peace because they knew they had that available. We would call it a liquidity pool. They just have this liquid pool of money that they have accessible to them at any time. And on that note, real quick, we make a big distinction between what is available money and what is accessible money. So available money is sitting in a savings account or a money market account. You could go pull it out at any time. It's sitting in your safe at home. That's available money. And I believe that everyone should have some amount of available money. But then there's also accessible money. And most people have accessible money. They don't know where it is. It's in the equity in their home or their business. It could be on a credit card. It could be in an insurance policy, but they don't look at that as, oh, these are funds that I could use to go grow my wealth. And that's the other slight distinction we're trying to create with Shred.
On that note, I've traditionally thought you need at least 6 months of liquidity or available money in a high yield savings or whatever. And I've personally changed that a little bit. It's similar for the reasons you're talking about here, but you would say you probably need much less than that if you've got available money in a different way.
I do. And I would say if you've got accessible money in a
Accessible money, yes.
different category.
Yeah.
And we are on the same page in that I used to believe 6 to 12 months, got to have that in the bank. I think the personalities out there are the ones who are really driving that home. It's Dave and Susie and all the people who have drank their Kool-Aid. And I kept thinking as I was going through that, I could go sell a speaking gig or a consulting project within 30 days and make an amount of money. So do I really need 6 months? Something catastrophic would have to happen in order for me to have 6 months of available money sitting there. So if we're talking about dentists or we're talking about surgeons, and my hope would be that they're protected with like disability income insurance. So if they have disability insurance, something tragic happens to their hands, to their ability to work, they should be covered. If they're working with a professional, they should be covered. But if there's something else that requires some amount of money, we can figure out 2 or 3 or 4 different buckets where that would pull from when you're using Shred that would ease all the pressure off of that at the same time. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. So how long does it typically take for people to start seeing results using this method? Is it pretty instant?
It is pretty instant. It depends on how much other debt is out there and what we want to tackle first, second, and third. So the way our system operates, without giving away the secret sauce, is it's looking at all of the debts equally, but then identifying which ones will create the biggest bang for our buck within the system. So if somebody owes, let's say $15,000 is left on their car, but the car payment's $800 a month, that might be the first debt we go after because it frees up another $800 a month in discretionary income, in cash flow. For most people, where they're going to see the greatest interest savings is they go after a mortgage, and specifically a mortgage that might be in the first year to 5 years of existence. Because in that period of time, that's when the majority of the interest is being charged anyway. So if we're going after one of those debts, and that could be a commercial loan, it could be an SBA loan, but if it's relatively early in its formation, the majority of the interest is charged during that period of time. And so that's when we would go after that. But yeah, people are seeing instantaneous results. The biggest one, Darren, are student loans being knocked out. And I know there's a lot out there about, I'm going to hang on to mine and maybe it'll be forgiven, but it's still, you're trying to run a marathon.
And pay it off yourself.
Yeah, that's right.
Mine were paid off long ago, so I definitely tackled those pretty quickly.
Same. And I was,
we want to go down the PSLF, Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, but even if I qualified for that, I wouldn't want to do it as the 10 years you have to do it. I just want to get it over with as soon as possible. And
yeah,
but
and the challenge is that you miss one piece of paperwork, they're going to throw it out. So the prospect of things going south on those deals, I think, are too high. And if you have good income and you can do this, what if I showed you a way where all of your student loans are knocked out? If you've been working on them for 20 years, and I'm like, oh, well, I can show you a way where in 18 months, they're all gone.
So give us I'm assuming and hoping you have a case study you can just pull out the top of your head. Give us a case study a higher end case study, if you have like a larger balance, maybe a little bit higher income, of an
Yep.
example of a shredder and what happened.
Yeah. So can I give two, Ross?
Go for it.
I just wanted to take a minute to discuss financial independence. For many of us who own a practice, we spend several years growing it and we eventually plateau in both productivity and profitability. At that point, we've got several options in front of us. We can either continue to physically expand the practice, whether it's an expansion or a new building. We can acquire another practice. We can acquire new skill sets or extend our hours, or we can simply enjoy the plateau and the fruits of our labors and the profitability for years to come. If you do that, however, the profit year over year is roughly the same, and when you go to sell it in 10, 20, 30 years, it's worth the same thing as it is at the point where you got there. So for me, the decision was easy. The time value of money meant that if I sold it now for the same amount I could sell it in a couple decades, I could put that money to work for me and pursue other passions in life. Whether it's simply working less, doing more of what you love when you are working, taking more vacations, or monetizing that hobby, there is freedom in cashing in your chips early, taking that money off the table, letting it grow and compound over the course of your career, and focusing more on what you love to do. If this sounds like something of interest to you, I'd love to introduce you to the guy who made that possible for me. His name is JW. He's a dental practice broker, and he did several things that facilitated this for me. He found the right partner to honor the mission, vision, and values of my practice so that it could carry on the same way it has for the last near decade. He maximized the valuation of my practice and really went to bat for me to make sure we got the best deal possible, and he optimized the terms of the deal that aligned with what I was trying to achieve on my path to exit. Now, because we have a positive working relationship, anybody that I introduce to him, he's willing to do a free valuation to let you know where you stand so that you can make the best decision for yourself moving forward. If you think you might be interested in selling in the near future and you want to take advantage of this free valuation to see if the numbers make sense for you, simply email me at darren@legacypointgroup.com. That's DEREN @legacypointgroup.com, and I'll be happy to introduce you personally to my friend JW. Now back to the show.
So the first one is it is a student loan case, and he had a mortgage and he had a student loan, dual income family. He's got a pretty good job making, I think he was probably at 150, 160 grand a year. She was a teacher, I think making 40. So combined 200 grand a year in income. Together, between the two of them, they still had $72,000 in student loans. And hers was from a master's degree, and his was from being an idiot college student. We'll just leave it at that. And so they had been making their minimum monthly payments, and they were coming up on their 25th wedding anniversary. Okay. So think about this.
Hold on, stop right there. You're telling me 25 years later.
Yeah.
And they had still $72,000 of student loans, which was 35% of their income.
Correct.
That is the gift that keeps on giving.
And here's the kicker on it. He's making the payments, but might make a little bit extra. Let's face it, most people, they'd say, we send an extra $50 a month and hopefully it gets down faster. It's like trying to toast a piece of bread with a flashlight. You know what I mean? It'll eventually get toasty, but it's going to take a long.
That's a phenomenal analogy right there.
Yeah. But we're all not we all, there are many people out there who are doing that and believe they're winning or they're gaming the system somehow. And what we showed this couple, and I love Michael is one of our favorite shredders because he is like one of the most ardent supporters of what we do. He did the math, you guys. And what he found was that over the 20, he actually started keeping track, I think, in like 2005. So 19 years, he had been tracking how much interest he'd paid. And the total amount of interest paid in was like $80,000. And the amount of total principal he had paid was maybe 16 or 17,000. So 100 grand in almost, 80,000 in interest, 17 in principal. And then in the about 9 months that he was using Shred, they blasted away the 70 grand in student loans in time for him to take his wife on a 25th anniversary trip and present to her the paid in full statement on their student loans. So
That's
this
awesome.
to me is like one of the greatest success stories.
Think about that. So it's someone might say they only made 200 grand. I made 800 grand. Think about it. The debt was 35%. That'd be like, if you're making 800 grand, it's like almost a $300,000 debt right there. So
Totally.
when you look at it, that's phenomenal. And life is not expensive, and life is not cheap today. Life is expensive, especially if you have a few kids. So give us the other story, the other testimony.
So the other story, and this is a guy he's a 7-figure a year guy. And when I met him, he's a business owner. He has thrived and succeeded through perseverance and stick-to-itiveness, and he gutted through the hard years. And now he's making 7 figures. And when he came to me, he goes, I just feel like there should be more. And I found this with a lot of business owners. They have a ton of equity in their home, or I'm sorry, in their business. But the intent is they're going to sell their business someday, and then that'll be the big payday that they get to sail off into the sunset with. And yet they're building this business to one day sell, but they have very little wealth outside of the business. Don't have a lot of equity in the home, don't have a ton in 401k or other qualified or non-qualified funds. Everything's been put back into the business. And I said to him, his name's Joel. And I said, Joel, are you willing to consider that if we just shift things around just a little bit, I can create efficiency within your financial plan, and you could be debt-free, and then the $1 million you're making a year is actually going towards building wealth outside the business. And I'm skeptical, but show me. So he had mortgage on a primary home. He had a mortgage on a lake home. He had 4 car loans. He had sinking funds for every single thing imaginable you can think of. So future trips, renovations, kids' college, you name it, a hunting trip next year. He had little baskets of money that were sprinkled around everywhere. And I said, this is completely inefficient. What you've done is you've taken the power of the dollars you're bringing in, and you've dispersed them among 15 different things, many of them that have interest charged against them. And it's made it completely inefficient. So what if we go at things like a laser beam one at a time and we knock them out right away? So he would get these big lump sums in, and we would knock something out. And what happened, we just did this month after month. It was about 32 months in, home mortgage paid nearly completely off. We ended up doing the recast strategy. So we paid it down to a point where the majority of his payment was going to principal, and then we recast it. And now he's got this ridiculously low mortgage payment. His lake home, knocked it out completely, paid all the cars off in the first 34 to 45 days. We took all the sinking funds, applied those to some of the debts. And basically what happened, you guys, long story short, is he was paying somewhere in the neighborhood of $60,000 or $70,000 a year in interest. So if he pulled in $1 million after taxes and 70 grand was gone, do the math. We clawed that back, and now he has that to begin putting into wealth building vehicles. And this is the smartest thing he did. He goes out and he buys a farm. And now the farm, we're shredding that mortgage, and we're using the equity in the properties to go fund other vehicles to begin creating more passive income that just add more and more revenue to his system so he can shred everything even faster. And the theory is that within 4 years, 5 years max, he'll probably have amassed somewhere in the neighborhood of $3 to $5 million outside the business, and he'll be able to go sell his business for somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 to 60 million in the next 5 years or 10 years. So the key to this for me, with business owners especially, is I want people to build wealth outside their practice as much as they're building wealth inside their practice. And most people don't do it because the money outside the practice is just, that's just what I live on. And what if we could not only live on it, but actually grow it, expand it, create generational wealth with it?
Darren, do you know a lot of people who might have a business but don't, and it's the primary wealth creator, and they might have a little bit, but they don't have a ton of wealth outside of the business? Would you happen to know a few people like that?
Sounds like about everybody I know, to be honest. Yeah. And we actually talked to them about reinvesting in their business. There's generally not a better investment as far as ROI on their dollar if they're going to reinvest in something. But yeah, if you can knock out the debt and start to diversify and get more passive income, it's like what you talked about. Like they think that they're going to sell this thing for a lot of money, and hopefully they do. And dentists typically can, but a lot of doctors end up walking away from it. So if they can really work on whittling that stuff down to work towards retirement, I think that's a smart way to go about it.
It feels to me too, you guys, and maybe you can confirm or deny this, but professionals in those industries, right? Taking care of people, service related industries, they literally get paid when they're working, is that when they do stop working, they lose themselves. That my identity was all wrapped up in what I do. And now when they're done, they don't really know. Hopefully some of them have.
That's true for all Americans. That's why when you quote unquote hang it up, I don't like to use the R word. I don't like the word at all, but you have to have a second act.
Totally.
Otherwise it's not pretty, because I got lots of thoughts and opinions on the R word.
Just your purpose seems to go away.
Yeah. And so one of the things that this has created for a lot of people in our tribe is the ability to begin seeing what happens is if your income is high and your passive income is lower, but they begin to cross over where your passive income starts to supersede either your income or your expenses. People take a pause, might take a long vacation and be like, what's possible is me scaling back to 2 or 3 days a week and having a mini retirement and really enjoying my life, maybe digging into this new passion that I have. Versus what most people do with the R word, to your point, Ross, is on this day, it's my final day. And then you go play golf for 3 weeks or 4 weeks. And you're like, what else is there? Now I'm feeling lost.
Yeah.
So
or
what if you could ease into that a little bit?
Or you can focus on the part of what you do that you like and not have to feel like you do everything because you're on the hamster wheel. If you want to focus on orthodontics or whatever, like you don't have to do the rest of the dentistry if you don't want to. But yeah, totally. I agree. Hey, I just want to interrupt real quick and say thanks for listening to the podcast. If you didn't know, we have an associated Facebook group also called Wealth Beyond the White Coat. Over there, you can ask your questions, get feedback from group members, and have a close community of medical professionals who are likely interested in the same things as you. Whether it's alternative investing, tax mitigation, ways to keep more of your money, or even protect your assets, we're going to discuss those things in the group. Additionally, we have a private investors club called Legacy Point. As a member, you'll get exclusive discounts to preferred vendors, and you'll get access to private investments that you'll find nowhere else. Whether it's hotels, apartments, oil and gas, equipment rental, you name it, we'll be discussing those details and offering those investments to members only inside Legacy Point Group. If you want to learn more about that, please contact me or simply email info, INFO, at legacypointgroup.com or go to the website legacypointgroup.com. And Wealth Beyond the White Coat podcast listeners get an exclusive discount if you use the code WealthBeyond. That's all caps, all together, WealthBeyond at checkout. I'd love to have you in the group, and I'd love to see you making more passive income as you move towards financial freedom, whether it's freedom to retire early, spend more time with your family, go on more vacations, or just do more of what you love while you're in the operatory. I'd love to see you doing that as part of Legacy Point. So here's to improving your financial health.
So Adam, we're talking about the shred method. How does it, if people are like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever heard of in my entire life, why have I never heard about this?
Yeah.
How do I do this?
Yeah.
How does it work?
I'll answer these maybe one at a time. Why have I never heard about this? You may have in passing from time to time, people have called it either velocity banking or the Australian mortgage. It's had peaks and valleys over time where guys like me come on and we're doing hundreds of podcasts and talking about it. And it gets in fashion, it's in vogue for a minute and then it goes away, because to be very candid about it, it does require that we change our behavior just a little bit, but it's just a little bit enough that if someone takes 2 or 3 weeks off, it's too easy to spring back to the way the bankers have taught us to operate. You know what I mean?
The banks it doesn't benefit the banks to do this. I would assume
at all.
Rather lock us in for 30 years.
Totally. At all. And I know that here's my deepest hope is that Bank of America or Wells Fargo or someone comes to me at some point and says, hey, we're going to stroke you a check to stop doing this because it's costing us too much money, right? We have too many people who are saving money on their mortgage. How do we get started? The simplest way, and this is what I would encourage people in terms of like step 1, step 2. Step 1, if you're wondering, is this for me? Would this make sense? go look at your most recent mortgage or mortgages statements and see of your payment, how much is going to principal and how much is going to interest. And then over the course of a year, and you got a 1098 INT last year that told you how much interest you paid to your mortgage company. But again, most of us look at that and we're like, I paid this and I write it off my taxes and that's that. So I want you to look at that number. And if that number is big enough for you to think, that's a lot, like that would cover a year of tuition or that would cover a car for my wife every year, then you need to look at this. That's step one. And step two is call your local banker or your credit union or whomever you do your personal checking with and ask them, could I get a HELOC on my home? What would it take? And I don't care how much, 20 grand, 30 grand, 50 grand, just, you're going to tell your banker, we're just doing some home reno. I'm just doing some upgrades at home. That's all you're going to tell them. Don't go into, I'm going to create arbitrage by doing this and that and the other. Bankers don't even know what we're doing half the time. But if you do those two steps, the third step, candidly, is go to theshredmethod.com, watch the masterclass video that shows you exactly how this works, and then consider engaging with us on the software, because the software is the behavior modification tool. It will literally teach you day by day, week by week, do this on this day, do this on this day, all based on the data we plug in and all based on you blasting away your debt in some massively quick period of time.
And
That's great.
what is the cost? Because it's not that expensive.
It's not. But to get started with us, $1,200 is our onboarding fee. And that basically is a package of, you get a couple coaching sessions with our coaches. We go through your numbers and get you set up in the software. And then it's $47 a month to use the software. So when someone says, can I do this myself? My bottom line answer is yeah, but you won't, because it's too hard to get out of the ingrained pattern you're in. Albeit very slight adjustment that we make, it's enough that the software makes it so easy.
Plus, you got to be a math wizard, which is very time intensive. And
Totally.
reality, someone here heard this and they cringe at the thought of $1,200.
Yeah.
But they're paying over $1,200 a month in interest on their mortgage.
So
Or they're paying tens of thousands of dollars in interest on multiple debts. So anything of value has a cost. And if it's real and the results can be had based on what you're saying, $1,200 is free.
Yeah.
And then it's $47 a month. And the reality is based on, and this is the second time I've heard it, but it does take a little bit of time to quote unquote get it.
Yeah.
And so if it can do what you say it does, and I believe it can, then that's a worthwhile investment, in my opinion.
It is. It's probably, and I've had people say you're underselling it. It should be a whole lot more expensive, because we do have people that have, as an example, have multiple rental properties. We have a shredder right now. He has 74 mortgages. That's about $5 million worth of real estate, or $5 million worth of loans. It's probably about $7 million worth of real estate. And when we ran his numbers, I said to him, Matt is his name. And I said, Matt, what would be a win for you on this? And he goes, all these paid off or paid down within 12 or 13 years, 15 years, the max. Yeah, I'd love to cut him in half. And we ran his numbers. He had everything paid off, everything in 6 years without changing any of the income, the expense profile. We're just reorienting how the cash flow goes through the system. And he sent me, after 30 days, he sent me a note. He goes, I've saved $50,000 in interest in the first 2 weeks. I've added at least $40,000 in net worth to my bottom line. I've never seen anything like this. Why have I not been using this all the way along? And I said, you're right. I should have charged you way more on the front end.
Too bad you don't charge a percentage of debt eliminated on this.
It's been talked about, but I also want to make sure that it's available to everybody. Sure. And so to your point, Ross, like it is an investment, but it's not, there is no cost to it. In the first payment, you'll make back what you've invested in the system.
So talk about the community and the coaching aspect and how that keeps people motivated as well.
Yeah, this is great, Darren, because the community itself, these are folks who are all after a similar mission, which is, and I talk about this a lot at the beginning, is there are 4 legacies that we have to leave future generations. And so when we start talking about the 4 legacies with our tribe, they get it and they really want more of it because it's such a great concept to hold on to and keep you driving forward to your goals. The 4 legacies are these. We're all after financial freedom in one way, shape, or form. But the reason we're after financial freedom is because when you have money, you have time. And so people are after time freedom. And when they have time, what they get is they get relationship freedom. Because when you have time, you're going to spend time with people you want to spend time with, not those you have to spend time with. And out of relationship freedom, we get service freedom, the ability to give back, the ability to be of service, to provide the service that we most want to provide, not the one we're paid to provide. And the community itself, when we get together, we talk about how are we living out the 4 legacies and how much closer are you to the freedoms that you're in this for: money, time, relationship, and service. So the greatest success stories for us are when people say, hey, I took a 30-day vacation with my family, something I never would have done before, but Shred allowed me to do it because the 20 grand we spent on this vacation, or 30 or 50 or whatever it is, depending on your travel taste, I knew it was there. It was in my liquidity pool. And I knew that in the next 3 months, it would all be absorbed within Shred anyway. So the problem with Dave, with some of the other pundits out there, is that if you're on a beans and rice and beans diet, after a while, you're just like, this sucks. I just want to go on vacation. I just want to buy a purse. I want to go buy shoes for my kids and not worry about how much I'm spending.
The emotional aspect of the beans and rice diet can really break you down.
It's brutal.
Challenging.
It is. It's brutal. And debt payment fatigue is real. And so our community talks about that stuff, Darren, or somebody's I'm in debt payment fatigue. And I'll say, hey, do this. Pause for a month. Go live your life. Take your family out to eat. Go on a vacation if you want. Come back and then be re-engaged to get to the next level of Shred. And candidly, you guys, what we've done is we've tried to gamify what we're doing. Because if you took a mortgage or an SBA loan or any kind of commercial loan, and you set a traffic light over the top of that amortization schedule, the first 10 years are red light, the second 10 years are yellow light, the last 10 years are green light. And by red light, what I mean is the majority of your money that you're sending in is going to interest. It's not going to principal. So it's just, I'm just working for the man. The second 10 years are yellow light. Some's going to principal, some's going to interest, but you're still not getting really ahead until you get to the green light years. And those are the last 10 years of your mortgage or your loan. And what we're going to do is we're going to race through red to get to yellow, and we're going to try and race through yellow to get to green. And most of the time, we're going to get to green in a matter of months, where the majority of your money is going to principal, and you're doing nothing but build your net worth, build your liquidity, and then have the ability to go disposition that elsewhere where it makes sense, where you're actually making good money.
I think that's a great place to wrap up. I really appreciate you coming on and teaching people. I think you've got a great message and a great mission, and people can really accelerate their path to freedom. I think that's what we're all trying to achieve here. So, Adam, I appreciate you coming on and teaching us about the Shred method. Thanks again for coming on.
Thank you so much, Darren and Ross. Appreciate it very much. Keep doing what you do, guys. This is super important work.
Thanks for listening in to Wealth Beyond the White Coat. Your time and attention mean a lot to us. If you found value in today's episode, please consider leaving us a review on your favorite podcast platform and share it with your colleagues and friends. Your feedback helps us grow and reach more professionals like you striving for financial freedom. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries of your financial health. Thank you for joining us on this journey to wealth beyond the white coat.